Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. Up here in front of us is the F1 Shitty. I think it's made a couple other videos before. But this is getting a little bit more work. It's finally running pretty well. We've only replaced the alternator, the idle air control valve, the map sensor, the oxygen sensor, all the exhaust stuff, all the exhaust components, plugs, wires, distributor cap, cap and rotor, and maybe a couple other things that I'm not remembering at the moment. Oh, fuel pump, fuel filter, maybe that's it. And by the way, it ran fine when parked. Anyway, it's all together, running fairly well, and now it is time for this to turn into a plow truck. I picked up a plow and frame quite some time ago, and it's finally time to put it back on. It came off a Chevy Blazer or something, had some sort of fabric-cobbled homemade bracketry on it, which came off pretty easily with a torch, because it would not match up to the Ford frame, of course. So I'm going to do some of my own fabric cobbling to get it back on. I removed the bumper, because that's just going to get in the way. Nobody needs a bumper. And I'm going to block it up on these blocks of wood, get it right where I want it. And there's some brackets up front that'll mount somewhere up to the front tip of the frame there. And then on the back part of the frame, we're going to re-weld and re-fabricate some bracketry to go on the rear more part of the frame there. And that ought to be pretty stable and secure. This isn't going to be really heavy duty use anyway, because it's just going to be plowing my driveway, which is flat, and in a real heavy snowstorm I'll probably use the bulldozer anyway. Well, here we go. It's blocked up perfectly. Got it all nicely stacked up just the way I want it. Everything clears the way I want it to. There's enough clearance between the grill and the frame, but still it's nice and close so the plow isn't hanging off too much. And then just to make sure that everything is the way it should be, even though it might look square by eye, you always want to measure. Find something as solid as you can on the truck to measure from. For example, for side-to-side measurement, I measured the gap here and the similar gap on the other side. And I measured from this edge here up to the bottom of the radiator support and compared the side-to-side measurements. And then lastly, I measured from this corner here in this way and compared this measurement to the other side. So I make sure this frame isn't tweaked this way, or any other way, and it measures out just about perfect. So now, with everything where it needs to be, I can start looking at stuff and figuring out how I want to make my own brackets. So in the scrap pile I found some of this worn out snowplow edge, which is, it's a nice thick piece of material. I saved it for that reason, but it's, it's kind of worn on one edge, it's got holes in it, so it's useless for almost anything, but it's perfect for this application. Nice heavy bracket material. So I'm just heating it up and bending it, but what I wanted to show you is one of the simplest but best tools I use in the shop for fabricating is just plain old baling wire. I almost always keep like a beat up foot or two of it sitting on my bench here for purposes like this. I need to bend this piece at this angle, and not only that, I need it this long. So very simply, just hold it up to whatever you're making a bracket for, and you bend the wire. It's easy to form, it's easy to bend, easy to straighten out. So now it's very easy. Once I heat it and beat it, I can hold this up. I gave myself a little handle to hold on to. I can just hold it up and see if the profile of the wire matches the profile of the steel. Okay, we're getting there. Here's 2 brackets completed for one side. These sure are a pain in the ass to bend, but this is basically how it's going to go. I'm just going to weld it right on the frame. Bolt holes, nobody needs bolt holes. We're just going to weld it. And then it's going to weld onto here. That little L-shaped bracket, once I tack weld my bracket on, I'm going to heat up this and bend it flat to give myself some more weld area. But since this is just resting with gravity, I want it to be a little bit more stable before I start heating and beating it. Then there's another bracket there that I bent to go from that surface over and then up right behind this mount here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and do some grinding to shine everything up and weld it in. Well, who needs bolts when you have a welder? I welded these brackets from the plow frame onto the truck frame. Came out pretty well. Now the one thing that I notice as I'm looking at it now, if you look at it from the front, kind of like this, you can see obviously everything's attached, but the plow, when it's plowing, the force is going to be going this way on it. And these brackets, you know, they're short this way, so they can bend like that fairly easily. I mean, you know, they are pretty heavy duty, but still, there should be a more direct, straight back support for them. But since the axle is right back there in the way, I'm going to make a little support to go from the front of the truck frame over to the plow frame here. And that should help take some of the lateral force off of those brackets that I made. So those brackets will do more just to hold the plow up, since it's kind of cantilevered out, and then the bracket here will do more to absorb the shock and impact of plowing. Well, here we go, we're all set. I did some custom angle cutting on two pieces of angle iron, welded it in there, and that's a pretty decent support, I think, especially for the service that this plow will be seeing, which is just going up and down my driveway. So that's it. That's all the fabric hobbling needed to attach the plow mount onto the truck. I still have to attach the plow itself, but that's just 2 pins and then a chain to go onto the lift thing there. So I'm going to call this end of part 1. Make sure to keep an eye out for part 2, which will be coming up. I'll be focusing on the hydraulics and electrics for this. This pile of spaghetti is what I'm going to be using to power it. Came with the plow setup that I bought, electric over hydraulic, and as you can see, it's seen somewhat better days. It uses electric switches for tilt and lift, and the wiring is in similar poor condition, so I'm going to get some new switches, some new wiring, new hoses, and mount this. Now this originally mounted under the hood and mounted on the fender bracket, or fender well rather, with that bracket there, but there really isn't enough space, so I think I'm just going to stuff this in the cab on the passenger seat floor, because this is just going to be a yard truck. I don't need to worry about passengers really. So I will be changing the length of the electric wires and changing the length of the hoses to suit that need. So that's it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 where I'll sort all this out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with these videos and all of my progress with the projects. And hit the like button if you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and come on back for more.